Okay. Well, let's go through some of them because I think this will be kind of fun. You had a what you call a near fatal encounter with a heifer that came up with one of the rules. Explain how that all happened.
Yeah, this heifer, she actually was kind of one of my favorite heifers. She was cow 7. I named her after Mickey Mantle.
Okay.
That was his number. Well, cow 7 all of a sudden turned on me one day, and she actually got right into me. She thought I was a quarterback, and she was a linebacker, and boy, she put me down.
She squeezed you?
Yeah, and if it hadn't been for our Labrador Retriever, Webster, who's gone off into cyberspace, I probably would have lost my life. And one of the things, I still play a lot of basketball, and I couldn't play basketball for about 3 weeks. And it's real interesting on a farm where you're dealing with machinery. Often you're isolated, you're dealing with livestock. There's almost a 60 to 70% chance you'll be disabled, and that's why disability...
In your career?
Yeah, yeah. And that's why disability insurance is very imperative as far as a risk management tool. By the way, cow 7, she ended up at McDonald's. and so that was the end of cow 7.
So that's the cow 7 rule. Make sure you have disability insurance.
Yes, and you know, we'll talk about life insurance as a risk management tool and all the other necessary insurances. We sometimes forget that we can be disabled very quickly there on the farm.
Okay, so that's the cow 7 rule. Let's try the 23-year rule. What is that?
Boy, it's one that I talk to agricultural youth. I do a number of programs. As a matter of fact, with the RBC speaking series, sometimes there's a number of youth in the audience. It's very, very simple. Credit card debt has become out of hand. And south of the border, it's over a $10,000 balance. And,
on average?
Yes, and the average university student graduating as a senior will have $3,400 of credit card debt. And what's real interesting, if you borrow $2,000 on a credit card, make minimum payments at 18% interest, it will take you 23 years to pay that credit card debt off. I call it the Michael Jordan rule because that was Michael Jordan's number, 23 years.
Wow. There's a gap missing there. It's just this isn't necessarily a farm thing of understanding not only the power of interest but the damage that credit can do, especially we're talking 18, 25, 30% on these cards. Is it just we're not taught the basics? Is that why we...
Matter of fact, we got all these stimulus packages in Canada and in the United States. One of the recommendations I would have, part of the stimulus package would be any person over 12 years of age would have to go through a six month personal finance course. Yeah. Including our senators and congressmen in the United States. But all joking aside, we don't teach enough of this in our school systems. And you know, you and I were raised where we had to be fairly prudent, but the credit card has really gotten out of hand. And it gets a number of people into trouble, particularly young people. And you know, I've got the rule of 43, and I named that after Richard Petty, the stock car driver. And I actually got to tell Richard Petty the rule. If you borrow $5,000 on a credit card, make minimum payments, 18% interest, it'll take you 43 years to pay that off. However, if you put that minimum payment into an investment, like an RBC investment, you would have over $500,000 43 years later. And I often tell young people you can go down to 2 paths. You can borrow this credit card, the easy credit, take you down this path, or you can be prudent, save and invest, and you'll have a future.
You wonder if we have developed or have seen almost like a fatalist view toward financing. You see the trend of some people who will borrow money, whether it's for a house or whatever, with no intention of ever paying the principal off. Do you see more of that? Is that dangerous? Right?
Oh, yes. And it's a very, very dangerous principle. Matter of fact, it's starting to show up in my RBC speaking series. Bill, who's been my driver today from RBC, we were talking about this, and it's, well, if GM can be bailed out, the big banks in the United States can be bailed out, why should I do it? And one of the things that I come back, we're all accountable, and we have to be accountable. And so that personal responsibility and accountability in the long run is a very, very prudent attribute.
Okay. Now, what exactly is the new Corvette rule?
New Corvette rule. By the way, I got that one. I used to have a Corvette. I grew up in upstate New York on a dairy farm, and it's very, very simple. Take the price of a new Corvette. And generally speaking, the family living withdrawals per family, say you got a father, son, and daughter, so it'd be 3 vets, will usually be 80 to 100% of the price of a new Corvette. Okay? So let me summarize that again. You take the price of a new Corvette.
So that's what's a new vet? You had a vet, I didn't.
Yeah, well, hey, I'll take it back to 1967.
Okay.
It's interesting. A new vet, 327, 350 horsepower Corvette, costs $44.95.
Okay.
And $4,495. That's U.S. dollars now. And the family living cost at that time was $4,000 per family.
Interesting.
Today, it's going to run you $60,000, $70,000. And what we're finding is family living cost is running $60,000 to $70,000. However, this is interesting, Kevin. In Minnesota last week with the grain farmers, they just got the new family living cost out because they have about 50,000 farm records up there. $89,000.
Wow.
And the more you make, the more you spend.
The more you spend.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so let's try a couple of others here. What is the 51-49 rule?
It's really interesting if you're in partnership, and many farm families and ranch families in Canada and the United States are in partnership. There's no rule of thumb. Generally, it has to be 51%. Somebody has to be the top dog. Okay. Somebody has to be alpha, and somebody has to call the decisions. However, we're finding that you can break that rule. You can have a 50-50 partnership. However, you have to have a business plan, and a business plan becomes your CEO. In other words, pre-arranged agreements, strategies, actions, and execution, so that then through the business plan you call the shots. So the 51-49 rule historically has worked, but now we're starting to see a deviation toward that 51-49 rule, and 50-50 partnership can actually work.
Really?
Yeah. But very few agricultural business people or business people, small business people, take the time to do a business plan, and the business plan is very, very imperative.
Wow. Okay, we've got so many of them here. It's hard to pick one.
I know.
Okay, so let's try the 5 to 7 year rule. What is that?
Okay, 5 to 7 years. One of the things that I really encourage young people, and sometimes it's the 3 to 5 year rule, if you've got children coming back into the business with you, make sure that they work away from the business anywhere from 3 to 5 or 5 to 7 years. Go out and make some mistakes on somebody else's money. And, you know, another thing that I really encourage, and then invite them back to the farm. But they come back to the farm with specific responsibilities and specific management transition. Oftentimes when we talk about transition management in the farm business, you think about transitioning assets. The mistakes are made often when we don't transition the management. And another suggestion that I have, and I tell students in Virginia, and I would tell people in Canada, get outside the state, get outside the province for at least 6 months to a year, but also get outside your country. I highly suggest young people experience time abroad because, you know what, we're playing in a global environment. You've got to understand global cultures. And I tell people the future generation of managers are going to have to think globally, act locally. Until you've experienced and understand some of these other cultures, it's very, very difficult to get a grasp on this big globe. And do you encourage them to get outside the business? Absolutely. In other words, the industry of agriculture. Absolutely. And one of the things that I find is, and it's really needing both sides of the border, we really need a formalized internship program where we go to other high-performance type of businesses where they actually have to study it, they have to be involved with it, and then do a paper and come back and present it. And it's one of the things, I know you've had Dr. Danny Kleinfelder on your program before. Dr. Kleinfelder and I have talked about this, and we're starting to move because we've got to have high-performance managers. You know what I tell the youngster today? It's no longer junior hockey. You're going to have to play in the NHL in management. And so sometimes to get that NHL management experience, what you have to do, you have to go outside your industry and you have to go to peak performing businesses. And I can